Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny. Welcome to my Emily podcast. Today, we're super excited to be working with community newspapers. And I have Jean here with me.
Always happy to be here.
So today we are talking about privacy. Privacy in every sense of the word. So
I guess it's like, what aspect of privacy are you really talking about, really? Because that's kind of like what has me curious, because privacy in what sense? Like privacy like online, or privacy in amongst our personal lives, amongst our people? Because I feel like those are very separate issues.
Yes. So let's tackle them one by one. First, I think it would be easiest to define privacy, right? The dictionary definition says, and I'm going to read it verbatim, the state or condition of being free from, being observed or disturbed by other people or public attention. So in that sense, let's just start there.
Okay.
How would you value privacy?
So in the very general sense,
yes.
I guess it's kind of like, I guess privacy for me would be the ability to be one's true self without feeling any sense or fear of persecution, or at least judgment.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is like social media, right?
Yes.
I mean, we want to post what food we're eating at that moment, right? But it's like, why do we really want to do that? And it's kind of like, it's almost like a paradox, right? Because we have our own lives that we value, and we have little things here and there that we value, right? But in terms of something like Instagram, that's something like really personal, right? It's kind of like, if you want to, you can have a setting that only people that you want them following you are going to follow you, right? So you can control it in that way, or you can have a completely open account, right? And then anyone can kind of see what you're really doing, right?
Right.
But then it's like, for one, there's this aspect of social status, right? I mean, it's like, that's the beauty of social media, right? Or also like the curse, right? We can literally put a number on what's your social status, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how many people even care what you're eating, right? Or what you're posting on Instagram, right? Does the NSA really care about like what you're looking at or what you're doing at that moment, right?
Right.
Do they really care of, what are your activities for that day, right? Who else cares, right? It's like, you can post something, you can literally have a number, right? How many people are viewing your story? How many people are liking your posts, et cetera, right?
Right. And then all of a sudden creates this relationship where you start to find or look for content to drive your life that you feel people will like.
Yeah.
And that can lead you down a very treacherous path, I would say.
And why do you think so?
Well, if you're living your life based on what you think people will like, that's not really, doesn't seem like a very organic growth for a person.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't seem like you're really being your genuine self when you're really caring about everything else that's kind of going on around you, right? It should work. The way it should work, at least, is that you're doing what you feel is important to you, and then anybody who cares can follow you along in that way, right? And it can be as minuscule as something like posting what you're eating that day,
right?
Or it can be something as extremely important as some movement that you're trying to put forward, or maybe at least some type of product that you're putting out there, some sort of contribution that you're giving out to the world, right? But it's like, there's this other sense, right, that it's like, it kind of has to do with energies, right? Because sometimes when you're trying to build something together, you really want to keep that private. Like, you really don't want other people influencing it, right? Like, if you're working on some big project, right, the last thing you want are people saying, that's stupid, or that's not going to work.
Or try it this way, which, I mean, maybe they're trying to be helpful, but sometimes you just need to be on your own, in the zone or whatever. So I guess a question that we can follow that up with is, do you think privacy is overrated in today's society? Because I know For the older generations, we were taught that privacy is this thing that you really cherish and you want to hold on to. But for you guys, the younger crowd, it's a little bit different. So it's interesting to see how the two kind of mesh.
I mean, to be honest, I kind of don't really feel like there is much of a difference. I think that maybe there's a difference in the way we express it.
Yes.
And I think everyone's pretty aware of it. So for example, I think, for example, you on social media, right?
Mhm.
This is example. You post something there, right? And usually you're posting something happy, right?
Right.
Like if someone's posting something sad, that's kind of like a big red flag for people, right? And it's
Yeah.
like that's like the time where it's like people maybe you haven't connected with are going to be like, hey, what's wrong? You know, something like that. But usually you're posting something pretty happy. You're posting like an accomplishment. You're posting something positive, right? Like
Mhm.
a good time or something like that, right? But I think everyone's also pretty aware that it's just an image, right?
Right.
You go through someone's Instagram page and it's if everything looks super perfect, then it's like, let's say you're posting with your significant other, it's like you're like the perfect couple, right?
Right.
Or you're posting all of your accomplishments at work. Look at you, you're super productive, you're on that grind, right? Hustling all the time, right?
Definitely.
That's just an image, right? But I think we're all pretty aware of that. So I think that there is a balance between that. Like I look through someone's, I go through someone's page and it's like, wow, they look so happy, but I also know they're a human being. And I also know that there's something else behind that.
But you think that's how everyone else takes it though? They're aware that this is just an image?
I think to an extent, I think to a degree. And I think that people are also aware of it when they are doing it. And I think that I think what does vary are individual people's prioritization of their privacy. How
Right.
much are they willing to share with other people?
Exactly.
And so the cool thing about it is that right now there's so much of a choice. There's so much liberty of how much you want to share with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about how much you're also willing to give out to the world.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling, well, at least my natural instinct is to think that if you are someone who's contributing to the world, right? If you are someone who is wants to give back, someone who wants to make a meaningful impact, I think that you will have to be willing to sacrifice some of your privacy in order to do that.
For sure.
I think it's kind of like I think we're a little past the superficial following celebrity phase of humanity.
Hopefully.
I think so. I mean, I don't see people buying magazines anymore. Right?
That's true.
If anything, we follow celebrities on social media, and it's like, okay, but it's kind of like we know that it's like, it's kind of like a meta following of people because
Right.
we know that it's an illusion, right? I feel like society and people in general kind of had that awakening already.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like riding a roller coaster, and you're not going to get harmed, right? You're not going to die, right? God forbid, right? You're not going to die, but you're going to ride it anyways.
Right.
But it's a ride. It's an illusion. That it's the choice comes in what you're going to partake in. Like, are you really going to make that choice or not? And it's kind of like celebrities. I mean, like, it still happens, but I don't feel like to the extent that it used to, where it's the paparazzi were always following celebrities around and stuff, like Lindsay Lohan days, right?
Right.
Or like everyone's just people's privacies are being interfered, right? I think the most I can only think of like kind of two big moments where sort of celebrities' private lives were sort of interfered with, and of course it has to do with like the Kardashians, right? So the months before Caitlyn Jenner revealed herself,
yes,
there were the paparazzi were stalking formerly Bruce, right?
Right.
And then he was putting makeup on in his car, and
and the nails and then I remember that.
And then at the time I didn't think anything of it because I didn't care, and it's just like I was like, well, he does what he does. Like I don't know.
He wants to wear nail polish.
I don't care. You do you, right? You're
exactly.
You're in America, right? This is what we fight for, right? You can do whatever you want, But then a few months after, like all the rumors turned out to be true, and then Caitlyn Jenner revealed herself, right? And then the other time that I realized that it's like, oh wow, like they're really interfering with people's private lives, were the months before Kanye and Kim sort of divorced. Well, not sort of, they did divorce.
Oh.
So that was like the other time where it's like there were all these rumors, and then it was when Kanye was running for president, and he was basically having all these mental breakdowns. And it was kind of like, all right, how much of people's private lives, aside from what they actually produce, right, do we really care about?
Right.
And if you want to be someone who is contributing to the world, offering something, because all these people offer something, right? Kanye offers art.
Arguably.
Well, I mean, you don't have to be a Kanye fan, right?
Right. No. Sorry, excuse me. I don't mean for his artistry, but yeah, we can argue whether it's something worthy or not,
valuable or not,
yeah,
right? And it's like that's subjective, right? That's like the beauty of
exactly.
art, right? But I feel personally that if you are going to be someone who is going to make a meaningful impact in the world, you kind of have to be willing to sacrifice that bit of privacy, especially since social media gives us this ability to really get to know someone beyond their product or beyond what they contribute.
Right.
I mean, like, do you agree or do you disagree?
I do agree, especially if you bring in like celebrities and stuff, because these people's livelihoods comes from being in the public eye. But when we bring it down to the average, private citizen, I think, and you as a teacher with your students are teenagers. So how should we be teaching our kids about privacy and how it can be a valuable asset if they're going to be just private, regular citizens in their, in their everyday lives when they grow up? Because for that generation, it's normal to be posting, excuse me, like you said, here's what I'm eating. This is where I am. This is who I'm with. Is that really healthy to be constantly having the need to share with everybody else every single little detail about your life? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to them, my opinion isn't as clear as with celebrities.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like when it comes to generations, right? So we're millennials. Right. And then if you're talking about, like, for example, my students, Generation Z, right? So Zoomers are an interesting case because it's kind of like they were born into this world where privacy wasn't really valued.
Right.
I was talking with a coworker, and his test to see who's a millennial or not is, do you actually physically remember 9/11? Right.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Do you, like, you don't look old, but do you remember where you were in 9/11?
Yeah.
Right. And
I do.
I think everybody does, right? That's like one of those big moments.
Right.
Shout out to like Rick and Morty, right? That's like, and the memory episode, right? Where were you in 9/11? Mm-hmm. So that's like a good indicator, right? But at least why I bring that up is because that was kind of where those were the stepping stones post 9/11 and Patriot Act, where legally speaking, privacy didn't seem to be much of a priority anymore in favor of something like security.
Yeah, it seemed like it was the thing to give up just for us to feel safe again. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it made sense.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's not just, I mean, it's privacy in every sense of the word.
Yes.
Privacy in that classic science fiction dystopia, and they're listening to our phone calls. They're, the trucks are driving by and, they're listening to everybody's conversations. There's that classic sense of lack of privacy, but also in a physical sense, right? Like, for example, going to the airport, you could be randomly checked and people can ask you to strip naked, right? Mm-hmm. That's a physical privacy that we have a right to, but we were willing to give that up for the sake of safety. That sort of calmed down a little bit. And privacy didn't really seem to be that much of an issue until Edward Snowden sort of revealed and whistle blew everything that was happening with the NSA. And WikiLeaks was growing, and it was Chelsea Manning sort of revealing all of these different government secrets, right? And that's the other, that brings the other layer too, right? Because government also has its secrets and has its privacies, right? And
Which we would expect, right? Because we want them to have our secrets. We want them to protect us.
which is why Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden are labeled as traitors, right? Even though they felt like they were doing something good for us, they blew the lid on government privacy. Right? So the government, for the sake of the interests of protecting us, needs to have these secrets, right? But when your value is privacy is not that important, as opposed to, let's say, the truth or morality, right? Then revealing government secrets and sort of removing that sense of privacy on an extreme governmental level is has consequences, right? So what were the consequences of, let's say, Edward Snowden revealing that, yeah, guess what? All of these private companies have government contracts that they're giving up all of this information to the government, right?
Right.
It was basically, that time was basically like, all right, science fiction was right. The government is listening to everything, or they're watching everything that we do all the time.
Yeah.
But back before then, if you talked that way, you were considered a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, you were crazy.
You were crazy. And then it turns out the crazy people were right, right? And then that became a reality. So two things could have happened. Either the people could have said, no, privacy is the most important thing. This is my right to be a private citizen. Or we could be okay with it. The latter happened.
Right.
Nobody protested. There wasn't this vision of overthrowing the government and starting new.
Yeah, we were totally okay with it. And as the years have gone by, it's been so interesting to see that now it's kind of permeated into our culture, right? It's okay in society to overshare. It's encouraged to just put everything out there. And the question once again becomes, should we really be doing that? Should we be teaching our kids to do that? Because for the sake of safety, okay, that all that is understood, but now it's just become something different.
And I think that also, I mean, maybe there might be differing of perspectives because, at least for me, because I don't have kids, right? So I don't think about it from that perspective.
Yeah.
If anything, I think about it from like my perspective. And if anything, as like a teaching perspective, it's like, all right, like my job is to give them some ideas for their future, right? So I look at it personally as sort of a pro or con list. Right?
Yes.
Risk to reward ratio, right? So what is the cost or benefit of lack of privacy, right? So this next generation was born into it. We're the transitionary, right? And if anything, it's that old school mentality, like so boomers, right? Boomers are, I mean, they're, no offense, right? But boomers are really, really old school and they have these values, right? And if anything, they probably should have led the revolution against, government spying and things like that, right? Generation X that came after, Generation X is also kind of like a transitionary period too, right? So they're kind of the last generation, I feel, that remembers things before the internet. And then our generation, I do remember no internet, but it's not, most of my life has been with the internet as opposed to without it, right? And so with this next generation, all right, it's they're leading the frontier in the new world.
Exactly.
Right? So if anything, it's kind of like if we're the front runners for this new world, right? How much of a risk to reward is lack of privacy? I think it has something to do with how much, like what I was saying before, how much are you contributing to the world? So for example, if you are going to work, let's say you're Jack Ryan, right? So if you don't know Jack Ryan?
Yes, I do. It took me a second, but I remember.
Shout out to all the Tom Clancy fans out there. So if you're Jack Ryan, I think it's pretty important for you to take care of your personal and private life, right?
Right.
I think it's pretty important for you to be able to find that balance, right? But if you are going to, let's say, I don't know, you're to be a manager at McDonald's, I don't think that there's anything wrong with you willingly agreeing to share your personal life on a grand scale, right? Or like
Mhm.
showing everybody what you're doing, right? Not to say that, your life is of less value or anything like that, but I think that there's an aspect of responsibility that's involved there.
Right.
Right. And if anything, there are aspects of, for example, being even like something that wouldn't be considered as productive as, let's say, working in the CIA,
Mhm.
as opposed to being a manager at McDonald's. Even McDonald's values its privacy, right?
Right.
You sign paperwork that says, hey, you cannot post the our food production, right?
Right.
If we find out that you're posting how we make the food, then you're going to be fired, right? Because nobody wants to see, well, at least they don't want to see that, all this frozen processed food
Yeah.
being made, and this is what's actually being eaten, right? So I think it's correlated to what your responsibility is. Kids, the thing with Zoomers now is that they don't have responsibilities.
Right.
They are learning. They're growing up. What, if anything, what they have to worry about with privacy, for me at least, has to be amongst themselves.
Mhm.
How is it that you are going to work with your peers? Because your peers are your network.
Yeah.
They're the ones that you're going to work with for the rest of your life. So, for example, if anything, what they have to worry about is like social media bullying,
Right.
things like that. But again, that's like, I feel like that's sort of on them. How much do we have to teach them for? I mean, I don't know. That's like an interesting question. Like, how much of it, if anything, that what's our responsibility to teach them? If anything, our responsibility would probably have to be to catch up to them,
Right.
because it seems like they're kind of far ahead in the game in terms of lack of privacy and technology as opposed to us.
Yeah, but you can definitely see how them being so far ahead can also create problems.
How so?
Well, you just mentioned the big one, online bullying. That's so many kids. I would venture to say 99% of them deal with that on a daily basis, just because everyone's braver behind the keyboard, right? And just not knowing that there's a different option, not realizing I don't have to post everything that I'm thinking. I don't have to post my status of where I am all the time. And I think that's just basic safety as well. It's not just, well, I want my privacy and I'm going to hold on to it. It's a matter of common sense almost. And most of these kids aren't aware that them posting, okay, I'm here with my friend in this specific place, can be a safety issue.
It's that's an interesting, like I said, I think that's also that perspective of, I don't have kids.
Right.
So I don't think about like their
Yeah.
safety in that way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I was reading up, and it's kind of, physically speaking, we're in the safest time that has ever existed, physically
Right.
speaking.
Right.
There is much less chance of a child getting kidnapped than ever before,
Mhm.
right? Because you can give your kid even basic technology today.
Right.
By our standards, you can give them like the technological equivalence of a Game Boy,
Yeah.
and it can have a tracking device. So you can give them a little watch. It doesn't even have to be like an Apple or a smartwatch.
Mhm.
And they can know where they are, and you can know where they are, right?
Right.
At all times. And the most of the Amber Alerts and that we receive, it's usually family.
Right. It's related. The idea of the stranger boogeyman kind of, it seems to disappear a little more as the years go by, for sure.
Yeah. And then kids are less and less physically bullying each other, right? If anything, that's more of like still a boy thing.
Right. It's the physical for sure isn't as prevalent, but the emotional, mental, verbal is definitely there. And now it's even more magnified because it's all the time, you know? If we go back to previous generations, you encountered a bully Monday through Friday, but then you knew the weekend they would leave you alone. Now you're on your phone and somebody has access to you the whole time. So that part is definitely tricky.
Yeah.
I think the other side to privacy for the younger crowd is not just to teach them that, okay, you know, you want to keep certain things private, but to teach them how to be okay and actually how to benefit from being alone, from being with yourself, from solitude. Not so much isolation, but definitely solitude, and how that can really help you. It's beneficial.
Yeah, developmentally speaking,
Yeah.
right? At least in a scientific perspective, developmental
Right.
psychological perspective, it's extremely important for young people to learn how to be by themselves,
Right.
right? You don't have to be an introvert to learn how to be by yourself, right? And if anything, it's like there is a social stigma to it too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If you eat lunch, if you're in the school cafeteria and you eat lunch by yourself, you're like the weirdo,
Mhm.
right? But it is important to at least learn how to be in that way just so you can adapt
Right.
on your own terms, right? But I guess it's like how much of you are willing to share that with social media. I think it's also a personality thing too. I think that's also like an individualistic
For
thing.
sure.
It's like there are some people that, for example, this is just conjecture at this point, right? I don't have any research to back this up, but at least I could imagine, I could see how the kid who does eat lunch by themselves is much less likely to share on social media that they're eating that lunch.
Right.
Right.
I mean, we're definitely social beings, and there is a time where you want to be with your peers. You don't want to have lunch by yourself. You know, that's a time to share, you know, break bread together. It goes back thousands of years. But there is a time to be alone with yourself, with your thoughts, with who you are. And kids nowadays don't seem to have any idea that that's even an option. It's you're only alone if no one likes you. It's like you said, it has a very bad negative stigma to it.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to add?
Well, I mean, I guess like from my biggest concern with privacy would probably have to do more on a governmental relationship level. So like our relationship to my personal privacy and then who has access to my information.
I see. So you're thinking about it from a more like pragmatic standpoint. Yeah.
Definitely. Because I think that human beings, I'll tell you why, because I think that human beings are very I mean, neuroplasticity is our biology.
Yeah.
I think human beings are going to adapt. It was my main point of generational trends. I think that we are going to learn as a species how to adapt to this new world.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, AI is catching up, or if some cases even surpassed us in certain aspects of thinking.
Right.
So if anything, this humans, you know, the future generations having a symbiotic relationship with AI, I feel like that's perfectly fine. If anything, I just see that as like a product of evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think human beings are going to adapt no matter what. But for me, there's the moral aspect to it, which is who has access to this information that I am not willing to give that information to.
Right.
So for example, advertising companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Google, for example, how are things trending? How do we know what's trending? You go on Twitter, all you have to do is click a little button, what's trending, right? How many people are tweeting about this?
Right.
And the only way that they know that is that they have algorithms, right? They track who is typing this, who is tweeting this. They have systems, algorithms, who is Googling this, who is searching this up, who is speaking this even, right? They have voice recognitions, they have facial recognitions, who's looking like this, who's not looking like this, right? How many people are posting about body positivity? How many people are not posting about body positivity, right? How many people are posting about this certain trend of eating? How many people are posting about this certain trend on fitness? What exactly is their right to be able to look into this, and how are we benefiting from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this is a private company. This is not the government that's going to keep me safe. This is someone that's going to sell me stuff.
And even if it is the government, right?
But it's not, right? Twitter's a private company.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're the government, then maybe we can make a case for it. It might be worth it. Let's examine how much of it's worth giving up. But for private companies like Twitter and Facebook and all the other ones that follow, I don't know. I'm not too comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like I can sort of make a case for them, but how much that case holds water, I'm not too sure, right? Because, for example, there is, the number one commodity that we kind of have right now is convenience.
Yeah.
That's why Amazon is the richest company, on the planet right now, right? Because that's their product, convenience, right? So if anything, I could make the case that they are making my life more convenient, right? By, I don't have to search up what is the most relevant thing happening right now. I can just click a button, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know what's happening, right? So and I can know things in real time, right? So I can know what's happening in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip right now, and I can understand what's happening with the Palestinian and Israeli conflict right now from a click of a button, because it's convenient for me, right? And that wouldn't be possible unless they knew that this was trending, right? Or I can get advertisements for the right fitness products that I'm looking for without having to do too much work or too much research.
Mm-hmm.
The right YouTube videos can pop up for me, right? Because it's relevant to what I'm already interested in. So I do see that, right? But is it worth them knowing every single thing that I'm looking up? That's kind of the question, I think.
And does it matter? Right? Because technically, should it matter if they know what you're looking up? Probably not. But like you said, it's the moral principle of the thing.
Yeah.
It's your privacy, right? And then you're bombarded with all these ads for days on end of something that you don't even want anymore. And it keeps popping up.
Mm-hmm. And there is the economic motivation for it. Mm-hmm. Because what's their motivation and how did they get to that position of power? Because that's really what it is. It's a power that you have over somebody else by having access to their information. Right. So they got into that position of power because they are interested in making a profit.
Yeah, it leads to extreme consumerism and all the other issues that come with the facilitating of online shopping. It's just you click a button and that's it. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I'm not really sure if it remains to be seen, mostly because I haven't seen too many negatives from it. I haven't seen anything that has made me worry about the information that they have, right? So that's basically it. Unless I see something that's going to make me be afraid of it, I'm not going to be afraid of it. Yeah. So maybe it should be something we embrace, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Jean, as always. Super interesting points you brought up. And thank you, everybody, for joining us once again to Community Newspapers for having us. And we will see you next time.
Stay safe, everybody. Take care.
Bye.